Continuing the trend of the past few years, 2024 was a surprisingly great year for gaming, as long as you ignore all of the things that made it terrible. Despite a couple of admittedly slower months and the complete implosion of the gaming industry, each and every month was populated by incredible games. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth continued the series' push in its bold new direction, Tekken 8 might just be the best entry in a near-perfect franchise, Palworld made a lot of people very angry, Helldivers II took the world by storm before Sony absolutely shat the bed, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth beautifully lived up to the legacy of its predecessors, while Persona 3 Reload redefined its own legacy. Princess Peach Showtime finally gave our girl another shot at her own game, Unicorn Overlord further pushed the limits of just how beautiful a game could be, Dragon's Dogma 2 added microtransactions to a single-player game and you people bought it anyway, so big year for the games industry. Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. Another Crab's Treasure finally got me to enjoy a Souls-like, Animal Well redefined the Metroidvania genre, Endless Ocean made a comeback, Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door finally got that remake, Hades 2 came out in early access and immediately recaptured the success of its predecessor, Elden Ring got DLC, Monkey Ball became a battle royale, Zenless Zen Zone managed to actually get me to give a shit about a Hoyoverse game, Concord and Star Wars Outlaws quickly built a reputation as the greatest games of all time, Astro Bot gave me hope for the future of PlayStation, Echoes of Wisdom killed any hope I had for the future of 2D Zeldas, the entire Marvel vs. Capcom franchise became universally accessible for the first time in my lifetime, Arkham made a comeback, Silent Hill made a comeback, Budokai Tenkaichi made a comeback, Funko Fusion, Rivals of Aether 2 managed to be one of the best platform fighters ever made despite releasing in an unfinished state, Sonic started dating Shadow, Metaphor ReFantazio showed what Atlas is truly capable of when they aren't trapped in the shadow of Persona 5, Mario and Luigi finally made a comeback with a gorgeous new art style, and Marvel Rivals slaughtered Overwatch 2 so hard that the former Blizzard president accused someone else of stealing ideas. Bro, you worked for Blizzard. As for me, I played a lot of great games, even more than I usually do. I am the most reliable source that I have ever been. But I will admit that I still missed out on a lot of games. Many of which I did actually really want to play. But in my defense, I also slopped spit with over 140 fucking games this year, so get off my ass and let me breathe a little. Every time a new Mario Party comes out, I say something along the lines of, "They finally did it! Mario Party is back and it's here to stay!" And every single time, it takes me about 3 months to go, you know, actually, this one was a little mid too. And while Super Mario Party Jamboree is absolutely no exception, it is still a massive step in the right direction, and even the worst Mario Parties are still more fun than most of the games I play in any given year. And Jamboree is so far from the worst that it's not even funny. This game brings back so much of what the series has been missing, with 5 of the most unique, complex, and creative boards in series history alongside 2 more great returning ones, a massive roster of playable characters, interesting and thankfully optional uses of the Switch's motion controls, tons of new ideas, mechanics, items, and events, and a downright insane amount of great side content. I mean, what kind of a Mario Party has this much side content? And it's all fun? And there's a story mode? Who are you and what did you do with ND Cube? Not to mention the most minigames in series history, allegedly. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Mario Party is finally back, but ND Cube has finally managed to recapture that original Mario Party magic. And if I'm being completely honest, the only thing this game is really missing is 1 extra board, a few bonus characters, and like 30 more minigames. Because I just keep getting the same ones on repeat. Helldivers 2 is my favorite kind of multiplayer shooter. It is a game where you and 3 of your dumbest friends hop into a lobby and then just unload your massive clips into giant computer-controlled monsters. It is the ultimate power fantasy that somehow manages to make you feel like the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the universe, while also constantly overwhelming you with an endless horde of monsters that you could never hope to overcome. This game is mission objective survive turned up to its maximum intensity, and its inherent fun and endless replayability are only further enhanced by its genuinely hilarious satire, its respectable attempts at meaningful political commentary, and a dev team that is seemingly willing to do anything to make their players happy. Unicorn Overlord is quite possibly the most beautiful game I have ever played. Although, I can definitely think of a few games that might want to argue against that. It is a tactical RPG developed by the people that made 13 Sentinels, my second favorite game of all time, and published by the people that made Persona 5. A game that used to be my number one. This is a perfect example of a game that I played almost entirely because of its art style, only to be pleasantly surprised by how impressive nearly everything else about it ended up being. Its gameplay and combat are deceptively intricate, deeply satisfying, brutally difficult, and steeped in an ocean of complex strategy. Every level plays out like an elaborate puzzle with 100 different solutions, and even despite its shamefully lackluster story, Unicorn Overlord's genre-pushing gameplay and beautiful visuals have undeniably made it one of the best games of the entire year. And it isn't even the only Atlas-published game on this list. If you even loosely consider yourself a fan of tactical RPGs, you need to play this game. Unless you're playing it for the story, in which case... I don't really know how to talk about Marvel Rivals besides saying it's like if Overwatch was fun again. And I don't think that I'm the only person having this problem, because that seems to be the only thing anyone ever says about it. Which is a shame, because this game is honestly very solid even outside of the credit it owes to other games. Marvel Rivals is a relatively orthodox 6v6 hero shooter with a fresh coat of Marvel-colored paint to cover its obvious inspirations. It is a downright insane multiplayer game with a long list of bullshit, overpowered, unfair characters balanced out by the fact that everybody in the game is a bullshit, unfair, overpowered character. It's actually kind of like that one quote from The Incredibles. You know the one. Say it with me now. All your favorite heroes are assholes. Marvel Rivals is one of the most fun multiplayer experiences I have ever had, thanks in no small part to the fact that it is intricately designed to be accessible to every gamer on the planet. Every class is fun to play, every ability is fun to try, and every character feels like they were ripped right out of the comics. Marvel Rivals is everything I ever hoped it would be, and more, and it has quickly consumed every aspect of my life. Balatro was a game so good that I unnaturally extended the length of the list just to fit it in. It is a poker-inspired solo developer indie deck builder roguelite buzzword that sees you compiling the most batshit insane deck of playing cards that you possibly can and combining them with a seemingly infinite roster of modifiers in order to turn your tiny numbers into big numbers. Balatro is an incredibly satisfying game that never gets old and perfectly manages to create a compelling power fantasy without giving you any combat or social aspects. It is by far the most addictive and replayable game I have played in a really long time, and it is the only game I played this year that I continued to play after initially beating it. Also, apparently it outsold Minecraft on the App Store? What the fuck? UFO 50 is without a doubt one of the most impressive and jam-packed games I have ever had the pleasure of playing. It is a collection of 50 incredible NES-inspired indie games that each present the player with a series of unique and creative ideas before pushing those ideas to their absolute breaking point. The collection, put together by 6 developers over the course of 8 years, proudly features platformers, puzzle games, Metroidvania, sports games, a 60-hour RPG, and a bunch of other crazy shit that I don't even know how to describe. This game absolutely achieves its mission statement of being an entire console library's worth of games, and it does it all for only $25. I wholeheartedly believe that you could buy somebody just this game and nothing else, and they would have enough games to play for years. It is insane how robbed this game was during awards season. Tekken is the fighting game franchise that just keeps giving, with every entry in this series being bigger, badder, and more bombastic than the last, with massive character rosters, seemingly endless move lists, intense, fast-paced combat, and industry-pushing visuals. And Tekken 8 is no exception. This game is just incredible. It's everything I like about the fighting game genre turned up to 100. It is the rare example of a fighting game where I want to main every single character. Hell, it's the rare example of a fighting game that I actually enjoy taking online. Anytime that I am not playing Tekken 8, I am thinking, damn, I really wish I was playing Tekken 8 right now. Tekken 8 managed to do the impossible this year by massively dwarfing the amount of time I spent playing Guilty Gear Strive, and I get the feeling that much like with my favorite fighting game of all time, I'm never really gonna stop playing this one. The Final Fantasy VII Remake project is a remake in name alone, especially in the case of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The combat is different, the story is butchered, minutes of gameplay are stretched out to last hours, filler side content is forced into the main campaign, forgettable battles against random monsters are turned into hour-long boss fights, and the game that the entire world fell in love with years before I was even born slowly becomes unrecognizable. But then, in a rare moment of peace and quiet, I watch Tifa talk to Cloud. I listen to Barrett give one of his speeches. Yuffie tells some offhand jokes. Sid makes a fool of himself while trying to push his cool guy persona. Red 13 drops a nugget of life-changing wisdom, and Aerith encourages the entire team to push forward despite the numerous odds stacked against them. I travel through dense forests, hike through vibrant meadows, crouch in the shadow of massive vistas. I stand on a cliff overlooking a sparkling ocean, and I climb a mountain that scrapes the sky. I battle gods and monsters and then face off against men 1,000 times more terrifying and deadly. I travel through a magical world that I have come to know like the back of my hand, and the familiar made unfamiliar becomes recognizable once again. And the long, iconic beats of a story that changed the industry start to fall into place one by one. Familiar notes played to a nostalgic tune, backed by a soundtrack that maybe, just maybe, actually deserved the damn award. And slowly, I'm reminded of how it felt to fall in love. I'm refamiliarized with these characters and reminded of why I connect to them. I travel this expansive, endless world and am reminded of why I feel inclined to save it. I face off against Sephiroth with my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with all the times I faced him before, and I am reminded of my undeniable, undiminishing, near infinite love for this game, this series, this franchise within a larger whole as I play a game that despite all its flaws, its bland open world, its tedious repetitive side quests, its immersion-shattering voice acting, its overwhelming need to fix what isn't broken, and its seeming lack of respect for its own history, still manages to make me fall in love with its characters, its story, its gameplay, and its entire world, all by simply being more of what I already love. 2 out of 10, get the fuck out of here! Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth was released at the start of 2024, and it spent the majority of the year as my undisputed game of the year. Between its improved visuals, its refurbished combat system, its bold new location, its phenomenal cast, its themes of found family and generational strength, the largest map in series history, its attempts to finally close out Kiryu's saga and give him the happy ending he truly deserves, the single most likable protagonist in gaming history, and its overwhelming amount of exciting, exciting, entertaining, creative, diverse, and hilarious side content, infinite wealth refers to the massive amount of side content in this game. I found myself staring in awe at a game that truly had to be one of the best the industry had to offer. Infinite wealth refers to the infinite amount of love I have for this game. Even the story, despite being one of the weakest in the series, still manages to stand toe-to-toe with the rest of the franchise and overshadow the majority of the video game industry because even the weakest Yakuza plotlines still blow most other games out of the water. Infinite wealth refers to the infinite amount of complaints I have about this game's story. This is a game that knows exactly what makes the series great while still keeping a respectful eye on all of the history that led up to this moment. Infinite wealth refers to the number of times that I can make this stupid fucking joke about this game's dumbass title. Despite my overwhelming love for Yakuza 7, I came into Infinite Wealth still unsure about the franchise's new direction, new combat system, new tone, and new protagonist, and I came out the other end with absolutely no reservations about this series' future. I am very happy with what the Yakuza franchise has become, and I am very excited to see what it does next. You know, now that I think about it, Infinite Wealth might refer to the size of Ichiban's balls. I spent the whole year looking for a game with a narrative so powerful that it could make me cry. And in the final days of 2024, I found one that made it happen 4 separate times. Thousand Times Resist is a game that I cannot even begin to describe. Not only because of its complex time travel, memory hopping story, or its unorthodox narrative focused gameplay, but because to even attempt to describe this game in any capacity would be a disservice both to the game itself and to any who might want to play it. Giving even the slightest warning of what Thousand Times Resist has to offer would only serve to diminish the power of its mysteries, dissipate its haunting, suspenseful atmosphere, and weaken the strength of its endless barrage of terrifying, heartbreaking, and life-altering gut punches. Thousand Times Resist is artistically beautiful, deeply personal, and wholly capable of permanently altering the way you view the world. It is a game you need to experience for yourself with as little prior knowledge as possible, which makes it perhaps the single riskiest recommendation on the list, but I've rarely been more confident that the risk is worth it. Astro Bot is a game that I have seen repeatedly referred to as the greatest 3D platformer since Mario 64. A deeply disingenuous and uninformed take that I have a myriad of issues with, although I do agree with its larger sentiment. Because Astro Bot is indeed a phenomenal game. It is the latest in a long line of overly corporate attempts to cash in on childhood nostalgia in an era where that seems to be the only thing that the entertainment industry is capable of doing. But unlike the majority of its contemporaries, Astro Bot does not simply coast on its references and homages, refusing to let its focus on nostalgia stop it from being a good game all on its own. And the result is indeed one of the greatest 3D platformers ever made. Equal parts a bittersweet monument to 30 years of PlayStation history and an exciting window into the company's future. This is the rare example of a truly perfect game, outside of the fact that it's all one big commercial for a company that I actively despise, and I was completely unsurprised to learn that it was put together by a studio made out of the shambling corpse of Japan Studios. Because only Japan Studios would acknowledge Gravity Rush, and only Team Asobi is capable of making this game. Metaphor ReFantazio is the latest release from the company and team behind the Persona franchise. I told you we'd be seeing them again. And you can really tell. So much of Persona's DNA has been carried over into Metaphor. The phenomenal writing, the complex and varied turn-based gameplay, the social links, the calendar system, the elemental tree, even the stylish menu designs all make their way into Metaphor ReFantazio alongside a veritable treasure trove of creative and ingenious new ideas that allow this game to create an identity all its own. With a creative and awe-inspiring fantasy setting chock full of deep and complex world building, a lovable cast of characters so diverse in their backstories and worldviews that I can't help but want to hear every aspect of their stories, a rich and engaging narrative chock full of unforgettable moments, mildly underwhelming but still incredibly important social commentary, and the single best class system in any RPG I have ever played, Metaphor ReFantazio cemented itself as the single best new release I played all year. It is the game that held my attention for the longest amount of time and the one that I played for the most hours. It is the game that I spent the most time thinking about when I wasn't playing it, the game that overshadowed every other game I wanted to play in the final months of this year, while simultaneously consuming every second I would have spent playing them. Metaphor ReFantazio is, in my opinion, Atlus's shining opus magnum standing tall at the top of a mountain of absolute masterpieces. And if you are going to play any game that I have talked about all year, please play this one.